Quinlivan has joined us in the studio. Michael, how are you doing?
Not too bad, no. Not too bad.
Bit earlier this year that you're able to join us in the studio than maybe you wanted to?
Yeah. A couple of weeks earlier than last year even, so I don't think we've been looking into July the last 2 years in a row now, but a bit disappointing, obviously, but thanks for having me anyway.
What was your expectation at the start of the year, like in terms of how deep the team could go? Was there a realistic prospect of making Super 8 this year?
Yeah, I'd be reluctant. I'm always reluctant at the start of the year to start setting the bar, because then if you do reach it, you nearly feel like you're in bonus territory, and that's not the way to be treating it. And if you don't, then you come away with a sour taste in your mouth after a year like that. I think we were a bit unlucky this year. Momentum started to go against us just between injuries, just falling out of form, and it's very hard to pick it up halfway through a year. And that's kind of ultimately, I think, what caught up with us later in the summer. We went up to down. It was, could have won the game. I think they'd probably admit that as well. But just with the way things went, I don't think it was any surprise that we didn't. That'd be my take on it.
Yeah, fair enough. Your own situation, you were injured early on in the year?
Yeah, I actually got an injury in November.
Right. Just in training? Or in a
it
club
was
game?
in a club game, yeah. To be honest, it was nothing really too serious, I thought, and I kind of tried to work my way back, because we had a couple of other long-term injuries. Obviously, Bill had done his Achilles in August, and he was going to miss the majority of the league. Robbie had taken some time out to go travelling, so I was kind of a bit anxious to get back and lend a hand, which was probably the wrong thing to do in hindsight, but it's great for me to sit there now and say that, but it was me who was pushing to go back, try and get back in the field, and I broke down a couple of times, and then it was...
What was the injury?
I did. It was kind of a combination of things. I had a cyst at the back of my knee. There's a lot of fluid there,
right.
And I had a bit of a meniscus, so they had to nip that out, and then obviously drain the fluid as well. So it was a bit more than just one job.
Right.
They couldn't be sure that both weren't interconnected, so they sorted both and left it at that. I was probably playing catch up a lot of the year this year, unfortunately, but that's the way things go.
Do you ever feel right then when you're playing catch up?
I think if you build it up enough, you do, yeah.
Even your physical fitness, like your match fitness, do you feel like you're still chasing that as the season continues?
Yeah, I think the later you leave it to go back, you do feel it. I think, I've probably struggled with getting a full pre-season under my belt. We tend to go a lot later into a championship in Tipperary. A lot of the times I think we've been in 6 semi-finals and something like 3 finals in the last 6 years, and even then obviously went on one run to an All-Ireland semi-final. So getting a full pre-season, I've probably struggled with that, and it does tend to catch up with you later in the championship, because those months of April and May when you're obviously now playing club and also trying to train, it's very hard to pick up fitness there. You're more just trying to get the football side of it right.
Yeah.
And that's it probably caught a few of us this year, I think.
Is this now something you have to watch in the off season into the club season and into next year?
It's very. You can't really say no to games too. I mean, we were playing a club championship match at home. Maybe. Again, it's easy for me to say, geez, I could have maybe given it a skip. I was in pre-season, I needed the pre-season, but at the time I wanted to play, and I was feeling fine. And it could have easily just happened on a Tuesday night inside in Dr. Morris Park instead of a club training ground, So that's the way I look at it. There's no point getting too down over it. Just move on and try to keep going.
Did you see Liam Kearns resigning from the outset of the year, that this was kind of like a make or break year for him and for this Tip team?
I don't think Liam had made up his mind fully. I think obviously with the way things went, he probably just feels he needs a break. I don't think anybody, I know everyone was keen for him to stay on. The county board were keen for him to stay on. The players were definitely keen for him to stay on. But he's decided to take a break, and that's no problem either. It's been 4 unreal years. I'm trying my best in here not to sound like, you know, it's the end either for our team. So, but look, it was. I think with the way things ended, it was just a very sad way for it to finish for what has been a great 4 years, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'd say the relationship between an inter-county team and their manager is a very intense one, especially when you get to the championship, because it's all training, very few games, and you're hearing that voice a lot more than any other sports person hears that voice.
Yeah. Like, a lot of the time you're hearing that voice more than you hear your parents. You know, there has to be a huge amount of trust there, which there was. And I think it, like, as much for managers as well, like, it can be intense having to try to get your message across that much for that length of time to the same group of players, and trying to tweak your approach to that obviously can take its toll as well.
Yeah. It could be the end if you guys don't manage this transition to the next manager properly, because you've seen teams before come and reach the heights that you guys have reached who aren't from the traditional footballing counties, and the next appointment's really important, but the response from you guys, the senior players now, who weren't the senior players when he arrived, is also hugely important.
Yeah, well, I think there's only maybe, is it 9 or 10 of us left from that team in 2016. Between people who've left the panel, you know, new players joining, we've a lot of young lads this year came in. So, yeah, like, I think you can be very quick to jump and say that that's it now, but you know, it'll ultimately just come. We'll ultimately just see it in the next 3, 4, 5 years, whether it was, and you know what, if it was the peak, it's a fairly good peak to hit, you know, for a team that had pretty much no hope for a long time. I think we lined out a challenge match that May. I only remember saying it to Liam after the game. He's like, we were supposed to play Sligo in a challenge match the May before that run, and we couldn't field the team.
Wow.
So like, that'll tell you how much had to go right for us to get where we did. We ended up having pretty much the same team started 5 games in a row, definitely. I think we had a couple of injuries. So like, look, it was an unbelievable journey, but again, it was 3 years ago, so you kind of have to park that and move on now. It's
it's probably the biggest example any team can hold up over the last 10 years of how did Tipperary manage to get to an All-Ireland semi-final in 2016. Is there a simple answer to that? Is there something that was there that you can say, listen, this is how we went about it?
Yeah, I'd say we'd make for a good subject in a think tank, I think, wouldn't we? Yeah, it was. A lot of things went right. I think the biggest thing was confidence. The confidence we took from the Cork game, and even getting over the line against Derry was a huge one as well, because it could have been just seen as we bet Cork, we played Kerry, and then bowed out of the championship after that. And like, I think when we went to Croke Park against Galway, all we were looking for was just a performance, and it was probably the best football I think that team has ever played on that day. So we'll take it. It was, yeah. Again, though, I'm anxious not to just dwell on it, because it is 3 years ago as well.
Yeah,
you know?
that's fair enough.
And like, we're probably currently now sitting in that group with Wexford and Fermanagh, where you've done your All-Ireland semi-final, but kind of.
Was that it? Yeah.
And I think that's the question, probably.
It's just interesting to bring up at this juncture when there's so much talk about championship structure, and it's interesting that you mentioned there that was all based on that win against a team like Cork, who really, like, it wasn't the biggest shock in the world. I mean, it was a Cork team that were maybe, if you went into 2016, maybe just rated a bit above you, but still, you're coming off a base from Division 2 over the last couple of years. Relegation to Division 3, if we take Kieran Donaghy's championship structure, which he did here on the show a couple of months ago, that would mean that you would be playing in Division or in Tier 2 next year. Is that the opportunity that, say, 2016 gave you, the opportunity to win games and build up that head of steam, or is it kind of like disaster?
I don't know. I think I do take the point on the 2-tiered championship, because mainly it comes back to your own performances. If you're good enough to go and play in Division 2, or you're good enough to get to that level, then you're good enough to go and play in that championship. I think the win against Cork for us was huge, because I mean, it was 70 years since we had bet either of the the two teams in
big
Munster.
deal. Yeah.
It is, like, and you know, maybe you can say, like, we've played them twice since obviously 2 years ago, but just we had a very much an off day, pretty similar to what happened to us in the Munster Championship this year. But the year before, there was nothing in the game. I mean, we were on our last legs. We'd we'd a whole heap of injuries, and we somehow managed to just concede a goal in the last minute, and we get bet by a point, you know. So, like, there was nothing really in it for us. I think we kind of backed it up the following year, albeit without winning the game. But I think your championship structure thing, I don't know, change is coming, like, I think everyone knows that.
Well, because last time we were talking to you, I think it was this time last year, we were asking you about this, and you were like, no, you need to, at that stage you said you definitely want to be able to win everything. When you start the season, you really want to be able to win everything. Have you changed on that?
No, I don't think so. I'd like it to be fair and straight. Like, I think we're in Munster, we've 6 counties, like, and Connacht has 5. Like, I think it's very unfair. I think I've come around to that point of view that it's very unfair on teams in Ulster and Leinster who have, you know, a huge, like, they have to play so many more games than us to try and get to an All-Ireland final. Like, I think the Provincial Championships this year, I think there's a place for the Provincials, I really do. But maybe not the place that they're currently in. And I'd like everyone to set off on the same footing, and if you end up having to go into a second-tier championship because you've lost a couple of games, that's fine. But I think everyone needs to start at the same level with the same amount of games, and leave it at that. As for the football championship as a whole, though, like, I mean, if you took Dublin out of it, it's a cracking championship.
Well, that's the thing.
It is a cracking championship.
We've been saying that about Leinster for a while, like, but now the rest of the country's catching up. It's like, take Dublin out, it's really good. Yeah,
it is.
Can't do that though.
No, that's the problem. You can let them play their own championship or something. But yeah, like, I think if you did take Dublin out of it, there'd be people kind of saying, is there much tinkering that needs to be done? Maybe not. Like, I don't have the answer.
The answer would be no on the current. There would be no tinkering required if you took Dublin out of the championship, because, I don't know, like, the Munster final was a great game last Saturday night. The Connacht final gave us brilliant scenes. The entire championship did. The Ulster Championship has obviously been the best Ulster Championship in a while. And
I thought the Ulster final was a very, very good game. Like, I mean, highest scoring Ulster final. Is that a trend that's now currently in the GA? Like, I think people are starting to come back to really, they get men behind the ball, but when they break, you know, there's some serious attacking football going on. And I think it's been a very, very good championship to watch in any of the games that we have watched.
And that is one of the things we wanted to get you in to talk about, was forwards this year. I guess from a starting point here, being an inside forward in the year 2019, the outlook is far more encouraging than it has been at any point in recent years. Yeah, I think teams are pushing up a lot more, especially on opposition's kickouts. I think we've seen it a lot. There's been a high press in a lot of the games, which means that if you can win your own kick out long, there's a huge amount of space inside. Whereas I think that's probably a shift from the last couple of years, where teams were conceding the kick out, dropping back, and then the space has been condensed a lot more. And it's meant that there's been a lot more kick passing into the inside forward line, I would say, which has been, I think that's probably what we've been missing for a while. Teams have also, like, there's been a good few teams have started to go a bit more direct as well, just really taking that 50-yard kick pass into their inside forward line and trusting their guys inside to go and win it. Yeah,
it seems like part of that is in a reaction to the offensive mark, which is probably going to come in next year. So, like, if you're already delivering good balls into full forward line who can win their own ball, then you're set up to be very successful next year.
Yeah, well, I think teams probably saw it even with the offensive mark. You put a ball in there and a guy goes and wins it in the air. Like, subconsciously you get a bit of confidence out of the fact that, you know what, I can actually kick this 50 yards into my inside forward. He's still going to win it, and they're under serious pressure. Even if he doesn't get the offensive mark, he's, like, I think most people in a full back line will tell you that the ball they don't want is the one where they're backing back over their head and there's someone standing behind them, because regardless of what happens, you're under serious pressure. Then it's much easier to play the ball out in front of you and chase a guy out, I would say. I spent a little time back there, but not a whole pile, but that'd be my take on it. I think playing the game in front of you is a lot easier than trying to play with the ball over your head back and towards your own goal.
That makes a lot of sense. We wanted to go through some of the best performers of the championship so far. So, Conor Cox, did you play with Conor?
I did, yeah, in UCC. I'm not surprised at all by how well he's taken to Roscommon. One of the most accurate inside forwards I've ever seen.
Really?
He was incredible in Sigerson football.
Really?
Incredible.
Were you surprised he didn't make it a Kerry?
I think you kind of had to take the landscape of what the Kerry forward line was like at that time. Like he played in the Sigerson team with Paul Ganey, and like Ganey was pretty much just breaking into that team at that stage. You had James O'Donoghue, who was footballer of the year. You had Kieran Donaghy, who was in there. You still had Darren O'Sullivan.
Yeah.
Like you were talking 4 or 5 top intercounty forwards. Gooch was still there at the time. Actually, So like, unless you're really like at 21, 22, 23, unless you're really setting the world alight, those players are always going to get the nod. Unfortunately, Kerry and it probably poses another question: is, do you know that level of footballer in the really, really strong counties that's just below intercounty level, or just teetering around the panel in the likes of a Dublin, in the likes of a Kerry? How many of those players would play for 75% of the counties out there? And it might be the start of the granny rule.
Yeah.
Well, all you got to do is look through all the junior teams that are contending every year and just go through them, find out where they were born, find out who their parents are, find out if they've got any connection to your county.
Clare did it for a couple of seasons with Pat Burke. Shane McGrath came down from Dublin and played with them, thanks to a bit of Clare heritage there. So I think teams will maybe start to look into it a bit more.
So if somebody rocked up to training at Tip training next year and they were good enough to play and they had heritage, would you be happy enough?
Yeah, if you buy in, yeah. I mean, I don't see why not. Like, it's. I think the buy-in is the biggest thing. I think you'll know after 3, 4, 5 training sessions if they're buying in and they're really into this. Then
fair enough.
No problem.
Yeah,
no problem at all. If they really want the best, like I think. The interesting one for Cox would be if Kerry came back in and said,
"Come on back."
Yeah, I think that's an interesting conversation. Then, that remains to be seen.
I'd say Conor Cox would be a brilliant forward for a team that he can lead the line on. He can be the chief scorer, he can be the free taker, whereas that was never going to happen for him at Kerry. He was either going to be the impact sub or somebody who has to play more of a link role, and they probably decided that his best set of talents is when he can be selfish and when he can take on those incredible scores for Roscommon.
I think the Kerry forwards probably play in a slightly different fashion to Roscommon as well. Like Kerry are much more of a unit, as in you might find yourself outside, you have to be multifunctional, whereas with Roscommon it's you stay in, you're the man, we'll give you the ball, you do the scoring.
Yeah.
And he's brilliant at that. Absolutely brilliant at it. I mean, the point in the last minute, I know it's the last minute, right? And I know they're probably winning the game anyway. But like outside of the right foot from the wrong side and he sticks it over and you're just going, stop.
If you're handing out the All-Stars now, Jamie Brennan is probably Footballer of the Year at this point. That maybe some people might disagree with that, but he'd be close. What is he doing this year? Because does he look sometimes a bit awkward when he's kicking the ball, that his technique is a little bit different to what we're used to seeing?
No. To be honest, I think there's been a few kind of players who have been like him throughout the championship. I think Rory Dean is doing a similar type job, maybe not as close to goal. Stephen O'Brien has been doing it for Kerry for a couple of years, where they're just coming onto the ball at pace and there's nobody stopping him. I think he's probably the main reason why people are talking about Donegal as a force that can challenge Dublin, because over the last couple of years they needed more scores than they currently have.
Yeah.
I think they probably needed another 1-3, 1-4 from play, and I think he's given them that. Or even the attention that he takes away, someone else can give you that. They're all chipping in. I think that's the main reason. I think you need a team that can kick 120 to be challenged in Dublin. At the moment, they're the only team that seems to be able to get that score on the board.
Here's what he can do. This is from the 2017 Ulster Under 21 final, the Donegal Derry game, and this is courtesy of TG Carr. So this is what Jamie Brennan did in orthodox style. Have a look.
Joe McGee east, agus McGee de fuair east ach tamsha, Ailing GY. Skilling the soccer lady Hinchinig Jamie Brennan.
Oh yeah, how
about
Cross
this
and
goal?
Jamie Brennan, Kiddes Villa, Brennan into the
Oh, wow.
Talk him up. Desha, cool forte, Glorkin.
Aryan Robin.
Jamie.
That was a real, like, what was this, R3 on FIFA. You just kick it ahead of you and run as quickly as you can. But in fact, like, to keep the ball under that control,
Yeah.
like, because that's not a soccer field either, like, as in,
No,
you
someone
can
can
really
kill
hit
you.
a bobble there, like, as in, to be able to do that it takes a hell of a lot of skill.
Yeah, so he's got a lot going for him.
Yeah, he does. He really does, I think. And they look strong. They do look strong. They're pretty happy with I'd say they're fairly happy with the way their defensive game is, and they're really not taking away from the attacking players that they have.
Not having the unorthodox thing.
No,
Fair
I
enough.
think to be honest, a lot of the times it can be harder to defend against that when you just really don't know when someone's that unpredictable. I think, but he's been. Yeah, if you were handing out Footballer of the Year at the minute, I think you'd do well to go past him at the moment.
He's strong as an ox as well, and that Donegal team just have scoring ability that they can drop scores from anywhere from midfield forward. So, and even obviously we've seen their defenders, like Ryan McHugh, obviously. We should talk about Mannion and Clifford as well in terms of the top forwards. Mannion's having his kind of I am the lead dog here.
Yeah, they seem to just keep rotating that, don't they? Yeah, to be honest, I think if you were picking out the best forwards of the past maybe 5, 6, 7 years.
Have a look at that one. Recognise that day?
Yeah. Philip, where's that Niall in the background?
2011.
Yeah, I think it's come to the fore a lot more in the last couple of years. Just how good that Dublin team was. Like Fenton couldn't get near it.
Yeah, you were a pretty good team.
Yeah, they're not bad. They still, I think they're still bitter about it as well. It's as good as you have to love that though. Like I mean, 5 All-Ireland. What are they? They're looking at 5 All-Ireland medals this year,
Yeah.
and they'll still
Bring that up.
Yeah, they'll
well,
still
you know,
want to.
it's your fault. You created this.
Yeah, no, I think Mannion. You'd put Mannion up there in the last 3 or 4 years with the best forwards in the country. He's always been. You see, you kind of look at Dublin and you don't tend to pinpoint the individual forwards because they're such a collective and their scores are shared around so much. You don't tend to go, right, there's the main man. Whereas I think now he's maybe starting to like he's coming into his prime. He's 26 now.
Yeah.
You know, he's been knocking on that door, I think. But he's really taken it up a notch in the last few weeks.
And is that it? Is that just the maturity of Paul Mannion, or is there something else that he's brought to his game in the last few years?
I'd say a bit of both. Like I don't know. I'm looking in from the outside here, right? But when you break into that team first, you're looking at Paul Flynn, Diarmuid Connolly, Bernard Brogan. Like Dean Rock didn't play the last day, did he?
Came on, yeah.
Came on. Like all of those players are starting to filter out, and he's suddenly now the one looking around going, like I presume there's other players looking at him going, he's now what they were to him.
Yeah.
And with that kind of responsibility, or with how he feels now being I am the main man in this forward line, he's starting to show it on the field as well. Because when you first come in, I presume it's kind of like fit into the team, you know, make sure, you know, you're doing your job properly, whereas now people are asking a bit more of him and he's really starting to produce. And
he took a year out. You can forget that. He went off to China for a year travelling to college, and it's like he came back and clearly had the support of his manager, because he goes straight back into the setup at that point. It was like, okay, we want you back. And has been involved with the club deep into this. They won All Ireland, didn't they? Or did they get beaten in the final?
They got beaten by Mullinachta last year anyway.
Yeah, so there's just a level of fitness that he's got, and the strength and the power that he's added to the speed.
Yeah, he's a big boy now compared to the pictures you were showing just there a while ago. He's really, really put on that condition, and I'd say he will have a big say in this championship before the end of it.
You'll have played against Rian O'Neill from Armagh, which is another forward I wanted to chat about, because ultimately being in Division 2, we don't get to see a lot of them in the spring. The summer, he's backed up that league form. He's having a storming first campaign.
He can do everything. Everything. We went up to Armagh in the league. Though I wasn't playing, I went to the game. He's big, very good overhead, left and right leg. But the biggest thing I was actually impressed with him is a lot of the time with inside forwards, especially when you break onto the scene, you're very quick to take the shot. You're very conscious that the players you're marking are better and you might get blocked down. So, you know, you'll get the ball and you might hit it a little bit too quick. He never seems like he's under pressure. He's always just, he'll take his step and then he's kicking it over. We obviously, when we were playing down, we watched a video of the Down in Armagh game and he was incredible in that as well. He has a huge future ahead of him. Huge future. I think he's if you were giving out a young player of the year, he'd be the one I'd look at, because I think he's really good. Yeah, I'm very impressed with him.
Who's John Cena's celebration as well at the weekend? Didn't go unnoticed by people.
I don't know. I think the celebrations have been toned down a lot. People seem to just run back out nowadays.
So, like, what is it?
It's been a while since Ronan O'Neill went for a couple of crazy ones. A couple of
Fortnite ones, yeah.
Yeah.
First person to dab as well in a GAA jersey.
Yeah.
I think he holds that statistic, Ronan O'Neill. Like, in terms of how you actually, because like you talk about that ability to actually take the shot at the right time, and that's something that you learn over time. His goal at the weekend is something that shows that he hasn't actually taken that time to learn that, because that little dummy and finishing to the back of the net.
Yeah, He's obviously being helped. He's a couple of very good forwards beside him as well. Like Jamie Clark has been brilliant for the last number of years. And when you're getting the ball delivered that he's putting in, it's very easy to do that. But yeah, he's a bit of ingenuity, but he's also not afraid to take on the shot. I think he'll really come good in the next few years. And to be honest, I think Armagh have a crop of young guys who are 21, 22, who are. They're starting to push their senior lads a lot. I met Jamie a few weeks ago, and he was saying the same. He was like, you know, they've come in and just been a huge breath of fresh air. I think they're going to give Mayo a huge game.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think that's the case. I see your Rian O'Neill for Young Player of the Year, and I raise you a David Clifford, who is still eligible for Young Player of the Year.
And O'Shea, yeah.
Yeah,
I think both of them still eligible. Are they still eligible for under 20s if they weren't in the Kerry panel?
Yeah, they're both. Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
I think. But so O'Shea has been brilliant all year, but Clifford was a leader last week in a way that you don't really expect the under 20s to be forced into. Just the game against Cork wasn't. There was a sense that this was him being the grown-up on the team now, as opposed to just being the star young forward.
Yeah, I think so. I think it said a lot also that he was the one who stayed on. Like there was no even hint of him being the one who was coming off. And especially when Cork put the squeeze on, he won a couple of really big balls. Even if he wasn't the one kicking the points, making that ball stick inside when they were under pressure. Really marks him out, and the ease at which he is kicking the two scores in the first half, like he's making that look ridiculously easy, and it's not. It's really not. When a man is in your face and you're one step and bang, and there's not even a hint it's going wide. It's just over before your man can even, like, as in, you know, from the minute it leaves his boot, it's over. His bounce over your man's head in the first half is incredible. I think that's what excuse me. I think that's what people really like about him too. There's a bit of like the ingenuity there.
Yeah, it's completely unorthodox.
Yeah, it is, and
it's the type of thing you would do it under 14 because you're a little bit bigger than everybody else, and now you're doing it against Cork in a Munster final.
Exactly. And I mean, it's a pity that like the keeper actually did really well to block O'Shea. You know, I think
deserved the goal.
Yeah, it did. It really did. I think you'd be looking back on it as one of the goals of the championship, and not even for the guy who's after scoring it. Had it gone in.
Yeah. Okay. So that's anybody else that we're missing who are turning up at the minute?
Yeah, just that'd be probably the breakout ones, I suppose. I think, but I think you're always looking back at the guys who've been there for 4 or 5 years. Like I think Michael Murphy's just been brilliant this championship. He's shown a level of. He keeps reinventing himself. Every year you think, you know, maybe you should put him somewhere else, and he keeps popping up and doing things that you're just like...
Yeah.
Which is a real sign of a truly great player. I think is just reinventing yourself, changing your whole game and suiting into the team again. So...
There you go. Michael, good stuff. Thanks for joining us this morning. Great to have you back with us.